Thank you, Dean James, the Vice Dean Robertson, also Dr. Jennifer Murphy, really the entire Wharton Undergraduate Division for making these 4 years as special as they have been. To all of our families, family friends, and friends of Penn who are here with us, it is an honor to be able to share just a moment of this magical morning with all of you. And to my friends who make up the class of 2024, I know for the past 4 years we've been learning in the subject of business. But this morning, I want to turn to the subject of history. And I want to turn to a chapter of our university's history that, while you certainly don't know a lot about, has profound implications on our future. Most of you should recognize the name Joseph Wharton. Some of you are graduating today as Joseph Wharton Scholars. Joseph is the founder and namesake of our beloved institution. This whole thing was his idea back in 1881. But what you don't know is that Joseph had a relative who was just as impactful for our city and our university, but gets nowhere near the due recognition. Her name was Susan Wharton. Susan was the niece of Joseph, and she was a prominent philanthropist and social reform activist in her time. Here is her story. In the late 19th century, the Wharton family had a home over in the Society Hill neighborhood of Philadelphia. And Philly has always been a city where people of different backgrounds and socioeconomic statuses live just within blocks of each other. And so back then, when you went outside and you walked between neighborhoods, you couldn't help but notice tremendous discrepancies in both economic and living conditions. Susan Wharton was someone who not only noticed these discrepancies, she all but dedicated her life to putting an end to them. And in part of doing so, in the spring of 1895, Susan sat down and she started writing letters to influential members of the Philadelphia community, businessmen, reformers, academics, clergymen. She invited them to join a group of people who would be launching a research study of the city. They were going to study the city to determine how they then could make it better. And so all throughout the summer of 1895, these prominent Philadelphians responded with a resounding yes to Susan's invitation. People were excited to join her group. And by the fall time, there was one person who thought he was too cool to respond to our girl Susan. His name was Charles Harrison. And in his defense, he was a little busy serving as the provost of a school called the University of Pennsylvania. Some of you walked past Harrison College House to get here this morning. Susan knew that if you wanted to do a research study of any kind, you would need the support and backing of the preeminent research institution in the region. So she did not let up. And eventually, she got Provost Harrison to accept her invitation. And all of a sudden, on a late fall day in 1895, Susan Wharton had convened in her living room over on Clinton Street the who's who of Philadelphia. Imagine all the power brokers of the city in one room. And on that day, they got Provost Harrison to announce the creation of a fellowship program, one that would provide financial and academic support for someone to come to this campus and complete a study of Philadelphia. But the most important thing that Susan got them to do that morning was nominate someone to lead the work. The person they chose was an African American by the name of W.E.B. Du Bois. And they charged him with leading a full house-to-house investigation of the city. He was to determine the present and actual conditions of the people living here. Du Bois would accept his nomination, and 1 year later, he would arrive right on this campus to embark on a study of Philadelphia that would change not only his life, but this city. Friends, when we arrived at Penn 4 years ago, we also embarked on a study not of Philadelphia, but of ourselves, of each other, and of the world. And this morning, I want to present to you 3 parallels between Dr. Du Bois' study here at Penn and our study here at Penn to show you just how much potential I believe lies within our future. The first parallel comes in the form of perseverance. Because of the color of his skin, when Du Bois arrived on our campus, he was not given an office. He wasn't allowed to interact with students or other faculty members. He was given 0 research assistants. He ended up being under-resourced, underfunded, and under-recognized. His schedule was so demanding that he had to miss the birth of his own son. He had to overcome systematic obstacles every single day he set foot on this campus. Now, we came here 4 years ago on the pretense that it would always be sunny in Philadelphia, but I know each and every one of us has faced our fair share of cloudy days, and because of that, we also know what it means to overcome, whether it be not getting the job or internship that you dreamed of, sinking instead of swimming at Smokes, or simply coming in last place in the Pivot or Perish simulation. We know what it means to persevere, my friends, and the testament to that is the fact that in just a few moments, we're going to be graduates of the best business school in the history of the world. The second parallel comes in the form of practicing empathy. I mentioned that Du Bois was given 0 research assistants. He led a one-man team consisting only of himself, yet he still found a way to go door to door throughout the city to interview over 5,000 people on their experiences living here. And in doing so, Du Bois essentially posed to Philadelphians a question that had never been posed to them before. Du Bois would knock on someone's door, they would open it, and he would ask, "What does the world look like from your perspective?" Friends, we've also engaged in a great deal of empathizing during our time here. We've taken classes on everything from how to manage a global crisis to the best way to value a company. You all started and led new student groups designed to bridge divides and create community. We've practiced empathy in our 4 years here. Just like Du Bois, we understand the importance of suspending our own egos when in the pursuit of greater knowledge. And the third parallel comes in the form of intellectual curiosity. When you go back and you read the methodology of Du Bois's work, you find that he sought to challenge the preconceived notions of race and social status that existed at the time. Our study here at Penn has propelled us into courses and co-curricular programs that equip us with the skills needed to be truly global citizens. We are now capable, my friends, of critiquing any preconceived notion. Now, I don't draw these 3 parallels this morning to make us all feel like we've had to go through the same trials and tribulations as Dr. Du Bois. I bring up his work because of what came of his study. The result was a 500-page pamphlet entitled "The Philadelphia Negro." It was a first-of-its-kind study that provided groundbreaking insights into what it was like to live as an African American in the Northeast. And the results of this study would go on to serve as the bedrock for tremendous advancements in urban planning and racial justice movements. And just a few years later, Du Bois would go on to found an organization called the NAACP. We honor Du Bois on this campus with a college house right down Locust Walk. Friends, just like Du Bois, we led a study here at the University of Pennsylvania characterized by perseverance, empathy, and intellectual curiosity. We know what came of Du Bois's study. The question before us is what will come of our study? And the answer to that question is different for each and every one of us. But to get us all started I want to go back to the work of Susan Wharton. What Susan did in 1895 was she got resourceful people in a room and she challenged them to use their resources to do social good. But it wasn't just social good for the world or for the country or for the state. She challenged them to do social good for their own city, their own backyard. In the coming weeks, months, and years, my friends, we will join institutions that have more resources than Susan could have ever imagined. Let us not neglect to also challenge our people to use such resources for the betterment of our world. And so as we all ponder what will come of our beautiful study here at the Wharton School, let us not just think about what goods we're going to buy, but rather what good we may do. Let us not only use our study to be architects of dreams, but builders of realities. Let us not only think about what commodities we will invest in, but also what communities we will invest in. And finally, let us not use our talents as mere tools for profit and gain. Societal progress, my friends, let that be our aim. Thank you all so very much.